What's up, Dragon Slayers? Today's video is about kidney failure and its connection to insulin resistance. Kidney failure is a lethal loss of most functions, including filtering ability. Type 2 diabetes is the most common cause. So, when we remember that type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance, it's only mildly surprising that insulin resistance increases the risk of kidney failure by 50%. And the worse the insulin resistance, the higher the risk. The most insulin resistant people have a 4 times greater risk of developing kidney failure than those with mild insulin resistance. Importantly, this happens even when glucose levels are still normal. Exactly how insulin resistance leads to kidney failure is not yet understood, although some lines of evidence point to kidney failure resulting from certain insulin resistance induced complications, such as hypertension and hyperlipidemia. In many, it may simply be the result of too much insulin. Insulin can increase the size and thickness of our kidneys' filtering apparatuses, which makes it increasingly difficult for molecules to pass from the blood into the urine. I really can't overestate how important this connection is. Compared with those possessing healthy kidneys, people with kidney failure are up to 3 times more likely to die. So we should want to diagnose any risk factor, like insulin resistance, as early as possible. If we're only relying on the usual suspect to determine risk, that is, high enough glucose to officially diagnose type 2 diabetes, it will likely be too late. Insulin levels, which can indicate insulin resistance years before glucose rises, must be measured. Our digestive and urinary tracts are involved in fundamental processes necessary to survival, moving nutrients into and through the body and eliminating waste from digestion and metabolizing those nutrients. When insulin resistance starts to change their function, the digestive and urinary processes become compromised, altering how we digest and absorb foods, and even changing how the kidneys filter waste and regulate the body's pH. Of course, once the food is digested and in the blood, it becomes material for the body to use or store. And depending upon what we're eating, that can have a meaningful metabolic consequences. So I found this interesting journal that I linked in the description below. It's a pretty interesting study on the connection between insulin resistance and kidney failure. So I'll share some of that abstract with you. So they talk about how insulin resistance is an early metabolic alteration in chronic kidney disease patients, being apparent when the filtration rate is still within the normal range, becoming almost universal in those who reach the end stage of kidney failure. The skeletal muscle represents the primary site of insulin resistance in chronic kidney disease, and alterations at those sites beyond the insulin receptor are recognized as the main defect underlying insulin resistance in this condition, the condition being chronic kidney disease. So, estimates of insulin resistance based on fasting insulin concentrations are easier and faster, but may not be adequate in patients with chronic kidney disease because of renal insufficiency reduces insulin catabolism. The hyperinsulinemic euglycemic clamp is the gold standard for the assessment of insulin sensitivity because this technique allows direct measure of skeletal muscle sensitivity to insulin. The etiology of insulin resistance in chronic kidney disease is multifactorial in nature and may be secondary to disturbances that are prominent in renal disease, including physical inactivity, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, vitamin D deficiency, metabolic acidosis, anemia, adipokines, derangement, and altered gut microbiome. And so they, the article, it's pretty brief, but it talks about how, all of these things can lead to cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis and vascular dysfunction, vascular hypertrophy, and the connections are all there. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember that together you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.